This is why I don't deal with like you.
Oh, I'm a now. You gonna call me a in my face?
I don't deal with women like you.
You.
Why you wig? Because it keeps sliding.
Hello everyone, welcome and welcome back to the channel. Long time no see. If this is your first time here, I'm Gabby. Why are we here today? Today we are going to be talking about dating shows. In my opinion, there are two specific groups of people when it comes to watching new shows. You have the set who rush to Netflix, Hulu, or wherever the hell else y'all watch shows nowadays. You guys rush there at the stroke of midnight, and these are the people who often engage in the early discourse when it comes to a lot of these shows. The model of releasing all episodes at once is one of the worst things to happen to society, by the way, if you ask me, and it's because of this group of people, because 10 episodes are released at midnight, and then by 4 a.m. y'all have your dissertations ready to go, and the only thing left is to hit post, which I think is crazy. So you have those people, and then you have my crowd, the grandmas in the back, hello, and we wait for y'all to get your shit off before we engage. And just to put it into perspective, I still haven't watched the third season of The Bear. Y'all know how much I love that show, and Ayo Adebari is my sister. It's really, now that I think about it, it's absolutely absurd because they're getting ready to release season 4, and I still haven't seen season 3 yet. But I was on Twitter when the show came out at midnight, and then y'all watched all 8 episodes, and I was, of course, liking tweets up and down the timeline of y'all saying that it's trash because I have beef with Christopher Storer, and that's a whole like other story because this isn't a Bear video. But I'll get to it because I need to see if it's as bad as everyone is making it out to be, and I obviously want to watch season 4. Maybe it'll be the video after this one. But anyways, I am usually out of the loop when it comes to most things. But something happened in 2020. Not something, COVID happened. And one of the only things that I could do was sit in my house and watch TV. And because of that, I believe, I don't know if this is fact. You know what? It is fact. It's fact because I believe it. That's also a story for a different day. But I genuinely think that I was amongst the first 10 people to watch the first season of Love is Blind. Can I prove this? No. But I'm going to keep saying it throughout this video. I don't even know what made me click, but I fully went into it thinking that this was going to be some sort of parody. The questions that some of these people were asking would be so unimportant to me if the end goal is to get married, quote unquote, sight unseen. Cameron asked Lauren to marry him after damn near 5 minutes, and I was sad. When the doors opened and Mark emerged and Jessica was so very unattracted to him, I said, these are my people. And you know, I've had to do some deep introspection to really get into why I enjoy watching a lot of this content. A lot of people pride themselves on watching what they would consider trashy television. But for me, as a child of the 2000s who grew up on Bad Girls Club and Jerry Springer, I genuinely think there was nowhere to go but here. There's something to be said about watching mess for the sake of being messy. But the thing is, I watch a lot of these shows because I fundamentally do not understand them. And this isn't me being facetious. And like, don't get me wrong, I understand the concepts and the premise, but more so, I genuinely don't understand the people who choose to put themselves in these situations, right? Every time I watch one of these shows, and since I just referenced Love is Blind, we're gonna stick with Love is Blind, but I ask myself, where would I have to be in life, or what person would I have to become to marry someone without ever seeing them, without really knowing anything about them? You know, like, How are they with their family? How do they resolve conflict? And this isn't necessarily a dig at anyone who chooses to go on these shows. Like, do what you will with your life. And who knows, at the rate they're pumping out these seasons, I might be on season 53 of Love is Blind. Anything is possible. But I believe I was watching an As Told by Kenya video, and she said this, and I think about it all the time. And I'm butchering it, and I'm paraphrasing it. But the gist is that y'all keep getting ghosted by the people that you meet online because there is no accountability. When they treat you badly, you can't go to their parents or siblings because you don't know them. And honestly, like, they don't really know you. There's no fostering of connection or relationship on that side. And a lot of these shows feel that way to me. You could be ending up with anybody. You could literally be ending up with anybody. So when you guys get upset that, like, yeah, this, from what because I've fallen off on Love is Blind a little bit, but allegedly that guy had like 2 kids, and you guys are saying, how could the show not do their due diligence? But like, y'all don't really do your due diligence when you're dating online either. But that's also a story for a different day. But as I was saying, after some introspection, I have come to realize that my fascination with these shows come from the fact that I have never thought this way about marriage, and hopefully, hand to my heart, hopefully I never do feel this way about marriage. And when it comes to these shows in particular, there's an uncomfortable voyeuristic thing that happens because at some point I'm just like, y'all don't need cameras in your faces. You need therapy. you need therapy. And the fact that all of this is happening in front of a camera just had me thinking about like how these people are being exploited. The relationships on screen are also very manipulative. And then I also started thinking about capitals. For a long time, I would constantly hear people say that the marriage rate is falling or that people aren't getting married like they used to. And while it's true in a sense, I'm also quite not sold on that. Most people are getting married older. If you look at the marriage rate amongst like people my age, I was gonna say like 20 to 25, but I'm actually 26, which is quite nuts. But if you look at that age group in 2024, of course the marriage rate would have declined. If you're comparing it to like the 1990s or like the 1970s or 80s, of course it's going to be different. People are getting married later in life. Women are going to school and getting higher paying jobs and entering the workforce, and all of that affects marriage. And just by the current landscape, if we're looking at it, the men are not taking this well. The men are not taking this well because this is what we would consider a paradigm shift. It is a conundrum because for so many years, marriage was seen as a leg up for women. Not saying that women saw marriage as a leg up for themselves, but this was like the general view of society, because if you were over 30 and unmarried, that was it. That was so much, and it's still like that in like a lot of ways. And this has me thinking about The Substance. Excellent film, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. But like, we've gotten to a point where women have basically said, okay, well, I don't want to get married because statistically speaking, after marriage, your life as a man will get significantly better. If you get divorced, you are 3 times more likely to remarry, and life as a wife will make me miserable. This is a generalization, by the way. So don't be like, I'm married and I'm happy. This is a generalization. So women have said, you know what? I'd rather put that off for as long as I can, or, you know, maybe I don't want it at all. And by women deciding these things, we're at the point where we now realize that men are the ones who desperately need marriage in order to foster some sort of community amongst themselves, because they don't have it. But that is a tangent and not fully what today's video is about. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, I want to talk about dating shows. We are 14 minutes in and I haven't gotten to the topic of the video yet. Why do I want to talk about dating shows? Because I think for most of these shows, there is a sense of urgency that is not quite there in reality. But the thing is, the kind of people that you see on these shows are relatively young and relatively attractive. If I were a conspiracy theorist, I would say that this is all just one big ploy to get people married younger because of like the birth rate and everything that's going on with that. Because you can't tell me that you are 25 years old, seemingly attractive, because we don't know if there's something else wrong with you. And you have done everything in your power to get married, but nothing has worked. So you find it fitting to go on a show called The Ultimatum, produced by Netflix Studios. I don't know if Netflix Studios is like a thing. I'm pretty sure it's a thing. But you choose to do that to watch your partner fuck other people, then decide if you want to stay together and get married. This just can't. This can't be what it has come to. It really can't.
I feel like I've connected with JJ probably more than Caitlin right now because we're just so similar. It's actually absolutely insane. I never thought that I'd meet someone like that here. We've grown really close, almost too close, I think, at times, in the room and stuff like that, and in the shower. The possibility of coming onto The Bachelorette and falling in love with a man never crossed my mind. But I believe in the process, and at this point, I'm a success story.
My earliest recollection of a reality-based TV show with the premise of marriage is The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. I don't think that there has been anything close to what the Bachelor franchise has contributed to this genre. Can I call it a genre? It's a genre. There have been a lot of copycats, a lot of imitations, and a bunch of gimmicky renditions of the show. But when it comes to cultural impact, The Bachelor was like Mount Olympus for a very, very long time. But while it was the first of its kind, the initial inspiration came a lot earlier. In the 1960s, if you wanted to see dating on TV, you were basically confined to serialized television. And then in 1965, TV producer Chuck Barris was either really, really bored or just, like way ahead of his time regarding late stage capitalism. And he said, what if we include real people in these shenanigans? And drum roll, the dating game was born. The show featured a single woman separated from 3 single men by a panel, so she couldn't see them, pretty standard format. And then she was left to judge their compatibility based on a series of questions. Then the woman would choose who she'd want to date. If you've seen those really cringe TikTok clips of this person with their potential dates behind like a white screen, and then they have to base who they want to date off of their shoes, you know what I'm talking about. Also, if you have seen those red balloon videos which have run amok in the Black community, then you also know what I'm talking about. That was basically the concept of the dating game. Now, in 2024 standards, this seems like a very tame premise compared to what we've seen, but you have to remember that this is a 1965 audience, so you can imagine that was like getting married, okay? The scandal. But it's basically the common ancestor for everything that we see today. At the time, it was definitely a novelty, but at its core, it was meant to be based on compatibility. It was a shallow compatibility, not much deeper than a puddle, but if we're comparing questions to shoes, like actual questions trying to get to know somebody, and then we're comparing it to like shoes, then I'd take the dating game. Compatibility, or at least the pretense of compatibility, has been at the heart of nearly every show that's followed the dating game.
Okay, so editing Gabby here because there are some things that have just come to my attention and I find it very prudent that I should share at this point in the video. So when I'm recording these, there are 3 different processes. Well, I choose one of 3 different processes depending on the need for it, right? So the first one is I'm just yapping. I don't read anything, I don't research anything, I just say whatever comes to mind. The second is that I'll do some light research, and research is a stretch, but I'll do some light Googling to put things into context if I need to get some like dates or something like that. And then the third one is like I go like in depth, and then I research and I try to like form some fleshed out thought. With this one, it was basically, I do like a little bit of light reading to find some stuff out, and then I just come and yap. I got to this point in editing, and something told me, I don't know what, something told me that I need to, read up more on the dating game. And then, I Google it, and then I see that people like Farrah Fawcett were on there, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Y'all, why did they have a whole serial killer on this show? I mean, at the time, they probably didn't know, they most likely did not know that he was a serial killer, but they had a serial killer on the show. I'm about to read this straight from the Wikipedia page. Rodney James Alcala was an American serial Killer. I don't know if you could say that on YouTube. I don't know what the rules are now, but an American, rapist, and convicted sex offender who was sentenced to death in California for 5 murders committed between 1977 and 1979. He also pled guilty and received a sentence of 25 years to life for 2 further murders committed in New York. He was also indicted for a murder in Wyoming, although the charges filed there were dropped. While Alcala has been conclusively linked to 8 murders, the true number of victims remains unknown and could be as high as 130. That's insane. And the thing is, the woman on the show, or the woman who, the woman on the show, she chose him to be the person that she went on a date with. But after she said that there were like something in her spirit just did not sit right, and then she felt uncomfortable, and then she called it off. Like, wow. That is so insane. Later on in the video, I already mentioned it, but when y'all complain about how these shows should be doing background checks on the people that go onto them, and it's like, that man could have really hurt that woman. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting and thought I would share. The woman's name, by the way, is Cheryl Bradshaw. I thought that was important. Okay, now actually back to the video.
Barris would then go on to create the Newlywed Game, of which I used to watch a reboot of in high school. Now, to be fair, the Newlywed Game wasn't technically a dating show, but it operated on the same general premise, as in, what do these people's answers to inconsequential double entendre questions say about their prospects of staying together forever? That's a hard one. That's really a hard one. I would say the Newlywed Game also builds on tension, almost as if, how could we have gotten married and you don't know the simplest things about me, like I'm allergic to shrimp. I could literally die and you don't know what I'm allergic to. You don't know what kind of medications I take. Why are we married? More than simply entertaining the audience, though, shows like The Dating Game and The Newlywed Game burrowed themselves into the cultural lexicon at the time. Then in the 80s, the dating show focus switched to The Love Connection, and it played like The Dating Game in reverse. And no, Chuck Barris was not responsible for this one, but his evil twin, Chuck Woolery, was. They're not evil twins. I don't know why I said that. On The Love Connection, the matchmaking and the first date happened before the show, and the show itself kind of recapped the date and then determined whether or not a love connection was made. And then if a love connection was in fact made, then this would lead to further dates. They had to get with the times. So more than anything, Love Connection felt like the traditional dating show was being brought to the talk show era of the 1980s. It had a visual style that was very much more in line with popular daytime talk shows at the time, in opposition to what Chuck Barris was doing with the dating game and the Newlywed Game. You can even feel that same sentiment in the fact that the show was revived in 2017 and hosted by Andy Cohen, but it only lasted for one season because, in my very humble opinion, by that time we had experienced way too much shit. We had seen most, I'm not gonna say all because that would come with like Love is Blind and like the Ultimatum, but we had experienced most of the crazy that reality TV had to offer, and only seeing this couple, you know, meet and then go on a regular date was just meh to the audience. It's like, we've been there, we've done that, and we've seen all we need to see. Let's get a move on. This sort of autopsy of a date concept continued into the early 1990s with a show called Studs, which sent its contestants out on multiple dates before the show, and then in Newlywed Game style asked them questions to see whose answers matched up the best. Studs was sort of the bend before the sharp turn, which would dictate dating shows in the new millennia, as well as being a reflection of what TV was going to start looking like in the near future. It was edgier, a bit more braggadocious, and not as demure. Dictionary.com word of the year. It wasn't as demure as an audience was used to seeing at the time. And this brings us to the pinnacle. Was it the pinnacle? It was something. All of this leads us to MTV. Side note, for the longest time, I've been working on a video that discusses the downfall of MTV, and I just want you to know that every day I am one step closer to uncovering what Rob Dyrdek has on those people at Viacom. But anyways, let's talk about Singled Out.
I know I'm only 1 out of 50, but it's obvious. He'll ask all the right questions.
And I'll have all the right answers. And when that big moment happens,
he'll take off his blindfold, turn around, and we'll lock into total eye contact.
I'm talking, we'll be the perfect couple. It'll be disgusting.
Oh, and he'll always remember my birthday. And he'll like me best when I don't wear makeup.
Somebody's gotta get
singled out.
Deep people making real connections. Tonight at 11.
Singled Out was a late 90s MTV show through and through. It was big, it was loud, and it was fascinated with all the ways it could get away with very nearly having these people fuck on cable TV. There's no better way to phrase that. The host, Chris Hardwick, handled the contestant, which was a single person looking for love, and her back was turned to a group of incredibly hyped up, desperate single people managed by Jenny McCartney. And when it came to the group of single people, it went fine when the group was populated by women, but with men it mostly devolved into them acting like animals. Like, I'm not even kidding. And I hesitate when comparing people to animals because I know the dehumanization that can go along with that, but like Man or Bear, like Man or Bear, really. And all of it was a hit for MTV and pretty much redefined the TV dating show. However, it is completely unwatchable due to the way that masculinity is portrayed in that. I tried to watch it for research purposes for this video, but I genuinely I couldn't do it. Singled Out helped to usher anything can happen on a live web show. Word to iCarly. But Single Out helped to usher in what I believe is a truly cursed, deeply memorable yet deplorable era of dating shows that mostly existed in syndication. For example, there's this show called Blind Date, and it premiered in 1999, and it was fairly straightforward and uncomplicated in its premise, to follow along on a blind date and then see what happened. This was also the first time that we could now be on an actual date with these people, which tied in perfectly to the boom of the reality TV era. And since reality TV competitions were in, gamified versions of Blind Date were next, i.e. Eliminate and The Fifth Wheel, which would either eliminate contestants or swap partners to ultimately arrive at a, quote, winner. Winners in dating games have always been very, very weird to me. I don't know. These elimination style dating games were really, really popular, especially on MTV if you were watching back in the day. TV shows like Next, which I loved, Dismissed, and Date My Mom. Don't ask. When I think of this, and MTV in particular, there are two shows that are so unhinged that I don't know how they were allowed to be aired, but they were so good. They were so good. And I am talking about specifically Parental Control and Room Raiders. Parental Control, I just need to say, if you have not seen an episode of Parental Control, just like pause this video, go watch it, and come back so you can understand like the gloriousness that I'm about to describe. So it's basically where a son or daughter would have a boyfriend or girlfriend that their parents could not stand. The parents would choose 3 people for their kid to date in the hopes that the kid breaks up with the person that they're with in order to be with the person that the parents chose. So pretty straightforward, but it was so good. It was so fucking good. And then we get to Room Raiders. What a time. What a time to be alive. If you do not know, the premise of this show consisted of a single person and 3 other single people, because I guess 3 is a cute number. Single person, number 1, would then have the opportunity to raid the rooms of all the other single people to gauge who they would want to date without seeing them. See how these things build onto each other. Fine premise enough, like, and I think this one was like one of the best ones because you get to see how these people live. You get to see their cleanliness level, which is like really important to me at least. But men, if you put a guy in a girl's room unattended, what do you think he's going to do? A 17 to like 19-year-old guy, you put him unattended in a girl's room, what do you think he's going to do? Most of the time, the guys would go into the underwear drawers of the girls and make crude comments about their underwear. And then when it was the girls' turn, production would give them a black light stick to look in the guys' rooms. So par for the course, I guess. And as much shit as I have to talk about MTV, and trust me, I have a lot of shit to talk about MTV, their shows were among the first to open the dating pool to queer people, and that was really rare at the time. It's rare even now, so like, give her 10s, I guess. Then, in 2001, Temptation Island would piss people off before its first episode even aired. Fox decided to put several happy couples, and it is happy couples because if you are in a happy committed relationship, then why the hell would you do this to yourself and to your partner? But either way, they put them in the same house as a bunch of like singles with nothing to lose, and the idea was to test the couple's commitment to each other. So basically, it was to cheat, i.e. the precursor to the ultimatum. But all of that controversy really helped with ratings, and the shenanigans and dramatics and subterfuge would become what we actively look for when we watch. The next big trend came during the post-Survivor reality TV success, when every network was desperate to score the next big thing, which would end up being the first season of Fox's Joe Millionaire. So basically, a single man claimed to be a millionaire. He wasn't. And the women didn't know, but they were all competing to be chosen by this man. This had the other networks scrambling because the people loved it. I think it's because people love to see women be humiliated and made the fool out of, but that's just me. The contestants didn't know that the man was a construction worker until the end of the show, and then the woman who he chose would decide if she still wanted to be with said man. Now, the first woman to do this, her name was Zora Andrick. Her name is, I don't think she's passed. Her name is Zora Andrick, and Zora was a better person than I could ever hope to be, because she chose the man, and her prize for being okay with being manipulated and lied to was the $1 million. I guess because had it been me, I would have chose the $1 million. But like, if I chose the $1 million, what were they gonna do? Were they not going to give it to me? I'm pretty sure that could have been a lawsuit. It should have been a lawsuit. The show was supposed to be a one-time thing, but thanks to its overwhelming success and, once again, late-stage capitalism, the producers gave it a second shot. Fortunately, it didn't work a second time because no, you will not fool me twice. And there was also no winning because the basic premise was, are women really gold diggers? I can't even be too upset with the guy, like the Joe, in this situation because he didn't even know what he was getting into. Years later, the guy comes out and says, I thought I was going to be on a show like Blind Date, but the producers gave me $50,000, then said, do what we tell you. So there's that. There's that. There was also a reboot of this show in 2022, but I have no idea how that went, nor do I care to check for the purposes of this video. Then we get to NBC's Mr. Personality in 2003. It had its male contestants in masks, with the woman tasked with choosing someone without knowing what he looked like. Sounds familiar? We'll get there. We'll get there. NBC also forced the whole traditionally attractive male meets beautiful woman. Then we have the ever so controversial Boy Meets Boy, which aired on Bravo. Now, let me just say, this show could have and should have been a hallmark for gay representation on TV, but as with like many things, like I don't even think I was gonna say like what is it saying? The best intentions pave the road to hell. The road to hell is paved with but they didn't even have the best intentions. So that doesn't even matter. Halfway through the show, it was revealed that like half the contestants were straight, and they were basically placed there to trick the other contestants, to trick the other actually gay contestants, and only if the person chose someone who was gay as well would they win $1 million. It was a mess. Most of these shows are so fucking messy. So then, against the backdrop of these increasingly salacious and cheap dating competitions, you can see why a show like The Bachelor might have seemed like the classier alternative. The Bachelor in and of itself sold the fiction of romance to its audience as it lined up dozens of single women to vie for the attention of one man. The show's success is a testament to the fact that audiences really wanted something a little less icky than like, you know, everything that I just lined out for you. Although like we're 20 years in, and the show has been known for its many, many controversies, racism being one of them. And though it has like kept the show like relatively relevant and alive, my question, and that's going to be a question that I have for most of these shows, how many of the Bachelor couples are still together? There have been 28 seasons of The Bachelor and 21 of The Bachelorette. I'm not even counting Golden Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise. None of that. What percentage of those couples are still together? I don't actually know, because I just thought of that question. I'm going to insert and probably do a voiceover. But I think that the success rate of Love is Blind is actually better than The Bachelor. And what does that say? What does that say? Okay, so all of the shows that I just mentioned, the end goal was finding a partner, i.e. girlfriend or boyfriend. Out of everything, The Bachelor is like an outlier, because even then, the most you're going to get is a proposal. And at least at the end of that, you can say that these two people somewhat know each other. They have a baseline understanding of who the other person is. We are currently about to get unhinged, down in the gutter, which honestly, when it comes to these kind of things, might be my favorite place to be. Do not judge me. Married at First Sight, season 18, does not have an official air date yet, but I would be lying if I told you that I wouldn't be like front and center. I'll be there for the premiere, because I have issues. I'm having so much fun filming this, by the way. I forgot how fun this is. But the title is very self-explanatory. The show is about people who have never met, seen, or talked to each other getting married. In the show, there's a group of experts who I think are not experts at all and who are creating mess for a check. Like, I did that and you would too for a check. Word to Coco Jones. The experts tend to refer to the show as a social experiment, sort of a modern take on arranged marriage. Each season has a very similar structure. In the first episode, usually known as the sign local. Oh, that was a work email. Yeah, but the first episode is usually known as the matchmaking special. The experts interview hundreds of eligible singles who are hoping to be married at first sight. They talk with these people allegedly about everything, so sex, religion, personal relationship history, in the hopes of getting an inside look into their personalities and what kind of partner would be a good match for them. The team of experts then narrows it down to about 50 people, and then they go on to conduct a round of second interviews. Even sometimes they go to people's houses to get a sense of like their daily routine and living conditions. After that, the experts pair anywhere from 3 to 5 couples, deem them engaged, and then contact them to let them know that they'll be legally married to a person they don't know in just a couple of weeks. The second episode of each season shows all of the singles, the chosen singles at least. They're preparing for the wedding, they're buying dresses, and the guys are picking out suits, and they're also telling their families that they will be marrying a complete stranger. After the weddings, the rest of the show basically documents how each couple is getting along with each other. Spoiler alert, they don't. And it also shows them sorting out issues and dealing with married life in general. The experts have the couples go through counseling sessions and do different exercises to help them grow in their relationship. Some of these exercises are very much questionable. And then after 8 weeks of marriage, each couple has to decide if they want to stay together and then get a divorce. After all of this, you might be wondering why people would want to get married to a stranger in the first place. And it might sound harsh, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm really, really not trying to be mean, and I'm so sorry. But it all comes down to simple, like, desperation. Because if you have seen, I would assume if you go on to one of these shows, you've watched a season or two. And I don't understand how you can trust these quote-unquote experts when they match people who absolutely hate each other. I don't want to get too much into this because I will be filming a video about Married at First Sight season 11 because that was crazy. That was absolutely insane. All of you who were upset about Love is Blind, that one guy who had the 2 kids, you have not met Chris from not Love is Blind. You have not met Chris from Married at First Sight. What is happening? You have not met Chris from Married at First Sight season 11 New Orleans. That was a mess. That season was an entire mess. Why would you match, I forgot the guy's name, the pilot. Why would you match the pilot with that party girl? Because they love mess. Because the thing is, they're not trying, and I honestly believe that the people, like Married at First Sight specifically, because Married at First Sight tends to have an older the participants tend to be older. If we're comparing it to something like the Ultimatum, where like you're 21 and trying to get married. Anyways, I'm not judging. We listen and we don't judge. But why would they match the pilot with that girl? Why would they do that? Why would they fucking do that? And back to the concept of desperation, because I want to specify, I am not speaking about the cultural practice of arranged marriage, because I just remembered that I said that the show has been described as like a modern arranged marriage situation, right? From what I understand, and also correct me if I am wrong, in most cases, the arranged couple don't just show up to the wedding and meet their partner for the first time. I don't think that it could happen, but from my understanding, it's a limited understanding, but from my understanding, I'm fairly certain that that is a misconception. I'm pretty sure that they spend some time together to see if they'll mesh well and get married. And also, you can say no if you don't, if your parents bring you this person, like, I don't know how it works, but if your parents bring you this person and like suggest, like you can say no. I think that's how it works. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if you say no on the show, like you're just not on the show anymore. Doing this, getting married to someone you've never heard speak, is pure desperation. And the desperation doesn't even have to be real. It can be perceived by the individual. When all you want is to finally get married, it might not seem so bad to put your romantic fate in the expert's hands just to pair you with someone who is on paper supposed to be your perfect match. Just for reference, there have been 64 Married at First Sight couples, and only 11 of them have remained together. So that's a 17% success rate. Why would you put your hands in the life of someone or a group of someones that have a 17% success rate? Would you put your life in the hands of a doctor that has a 17% success rate? I need everybody to be so fucking serious. I need us to be, as a society, we need to be a bit more serious. Now, I did say we were heading to the bottom of the barrel, but we might just about to, we're about to enter hell. We're very much so about to enter hell. I've been watching 90 Day Fiancé since the first season, and I know that says a lot about me, but please just walk with me. Walk with me.
Physically, I'm attracted to Nicole, but it's not like, just like, for example, 55%. Because I always want my wife to go to the gym, which will be healthy.
But are you attracted to me no matter what?
I love you. Just please go to the gym together.
But are you attracted to me no matter what?
Yeah, exactly.
From Danielle and Mohammed, Azan and Nicole, Michael and Angela, Gino and Jasmine, Darcy and Stacy, I have been through every single uncomfortable moment and I love it. I feel like I'm doing an interpretive dance and I'm also talking a lot with my hands. But we're just gonna have to roll with it. The show has brought about a range of spin-offs. Oh, Lauren and Faith. This is terrible. This show is so fucking this show is unserious. My computer is about to die. Give me 1 second. I will be back. And we're back. We were talking about 90 Day Fiancé. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the spin-offs. So we have the regular 90 Day Fiancé. Then we have Before the 90 Days, 90 Day the Other Way, Happily Ever After, one of my like favorites, The Family Chantal, and this show is gold. It is gold, and TLC is going to hell. The general premise of this show, count how many times I say premise in this video, but the general premise is that there's this American falls in love with someone overseas. Couple navigates often complicated, expensive, and cumbersome K-1 visa process in order to be united with the love of their life. It seems simple enough, and the drama that ensues is fascinating. We obviously have cultural differences. There is miscommunications because a lot of the times the American person will fall in love with someone whose first language is not English, and then they don't make the effort to learn at least some of the most basic phrases in that person's culture. And then I very specifically like Paul and Karini, because it's crazy. Paul was an arsonist. Paul committed arson. Paul was running through. Karini was from Brazil, I believe. He wanted to move to Brazil. He committed fraud. It was a mess. It was a complete shit show, to be quite honest. But then we have family tension. The family thinks the intended spouse is only coming to America for a green card, which is another thing. Like, Americans really dislike people coming to the US for green card. The thing about 90 Day Fiancé is that I don't understand the marketing of this show at all. And you know what? Maybe that's the brilliance of TLC and company. Is it a love story? Is it a comedy? Is it a tragedy that keeps on giving? The 90 Day Fiancé franchise depends heavily on narrative, and most things depend heavily on narrative, but specifically the 90 Day Fiancé franchise depends heavily on narrative. Every season, TLC and Sharp Entertainment will select 6 or 7 couples who have already applied for the K-1 and then tell their stories. Unlike other reality or competition shows where the end goal is, to find love, 90 Day Fiancé is very specifically anti-fantasy. You don't want to be like these people. You don't want to be in these situations. Watching this show, as I mentioned before, what are you doing? As I mentioned before, like, it is very easy to believe that a green card is something that the rest of the world desperately wants, and it plays on that narrative very, very well. Also, another tangent, when they did 90 Day Fiancé the other way, it was very much telling how these Americans, I'm gonna say that, I don't mean to, because most of my audience is actually from the US, so I don't even mean to say it like this, but there was very much the stereotype of this dumb American does not understand what it's like to live in this culture, to live in another country. You don't research what it's like to be there. It's very much one of the recent seasons, this one girl, I think Vea, I'm probably butchering that, but she's from America, and she is walking along the street and she stops by, like, you know, the side of the road to buy a piece of pineapple. And then she pulls out her phone and then wants to pay with Apple Pay. And then the lady's like, what is this? The lady doesn't even know what Apple Pay is. And she's like, you guys don't have Apple Pay? Like, what is this? It's shit like that shows that if you actually wanted to move to this country where the alleged love of your life is, you would put in some effort to, like, read up and find out what it is there. It doesn't portray Americans in a good light either. So I'm very confused as to who this show is specifically for. There's also this dark side to it that's highlighted frequently. I don't know if that is intentional of TLC. I actually don't think it's intentional of them, but it's hard to miss because financial exploitation and manipulation is buried into the DNA of this show. It's really hard to deny the reality that comes from issues of wealth disparity and exploitation, especially if they're the ones moving to the US and they have to depend on their partner. I'm pretty sure that it happens on a regular basis without, you know, seeing all of the dramatics that we see on a TLC show, but the show in and of itself has kind of, I would say, given a bad name to, like, the K-1 visa. I don't know what kind of reputation it had before, but I can say that TLC has really given that visa a negative, like, there's a negative connotation around it. Should we discuss Michael and Angela? I for one think that this is one of the main reasons why TLC is going to hell, and, like, the pearly gates will be closed to them because they have allowed this abuse, and I'm gonna call it abuse because that's what it is. They have allowed for this abuse to play out on television. We met Michael and Angela in 2017 on the second season of Before the 90 Days when Angela went to Nigeria for the first time and brought Michael Donald Trump underwear that Michael was all too ready to put on because he was like, he likes Donald Trump. As bad as I feel for Michael most of the time, I could never give him a 10. And I also want to specify that, like, even though he did that, Angela was abusing this grown man on television. Over the past years, we have spent way too much time with this couple. We have seen Angela call Michael everything in the book besides the N-word, and she has called him everything but a child of God. And based on how she acted in front of the camera when those cameras were rolling, that was a tongue twister. I do not take it for granted. Maybe she did call him the N-word. Michael has left her now. Good on him. And allegedly he has a girlfriend, girl. The overarching issue that isn't really present in the shows that we were talking about before is the power dynamics and the problems that result from an imbalanced financial relationship. It isn't like, yeah, you make a little bit more than me and that's fine. No, like, I'm coming over to this country with nothing and I fully depend on you. Part of this is due to the fact that one half of the relationship is comprised of persons coming from countries where the average income is much lower than the standard American income, but it's also frequently mentioned that the spouses on the K-1 visa cannot work until they obtain their green card, meaning any savings that they might happen to have, if they have savings, quickly evaporates, and then we have this issue of financial dependence. It's not difficult to see why 90 Day Fiancé still has the audience it does, myself included. It's far from being the first reality TV show to make a profit by showing the less impressive side of human nature, but it also it's one step away from hell, because at the end of the day, all it is spectacle. It is very much spectacle. At least with a show like Married at First Sight, Love is Blind, to some extent, we could say that there's like a perceived care. If you let the cast tell it, it's very much different because a lot of the cast members from like Netflix shows like Love is Blind are actually like suing production and all that stuff. But there is like a perceived care, like you want these couples, or at least the show, want these couples to succeed while also having their drama-filled moments to help their ratings. TLC don't give a fuck. TLC does not give a fuck, and it could also be due to the fact that these people find each other on their own. They're already in the process of seeing each other, of wanting to apply for the K1, and then TLC finds them like that. So these people already know each other, so TLC probably feels like a less inclination to intervene if something goes wrong. Whereas on Netflix, it's like, hey Netflix, like you're the reason that we're together. This is a very controlled environment. You picked, these participants. If you did not pick these participants, I would not be with this person. So it is very much controlled in that way, where Netflix probably has more of like a stake in those relationships. TLC does not have a stake in Angela and Michael's relationship besides the ratings that they bring, because couple is unhinged and should not be together. As human beings, I genuinely believe that we are hardwired to foster relationships. We build societies and families in order to survive, and at one point in time, all of these relationships were held to the same standard, whether it be romantic or platonic. And I'm generously using the word romantic because people started getting married for love 2 business days ago. But we've held the idea of romance and romantic love and marriage to a certain standard for such a long time that we salivate over a sweet story of people falling in love, even if the conditions in which it happens are completely fantastical, right? And this brings me to Love is Blind. I genuinely think, like, looking back on like the history and everything, Love is Blind was very much inevitable. I think it came at a perfect time when all of us were in our houses just touching 4 walls, and we had nothing to do but marvel over this new thing, this new spectacle. And to be quite frank, the first season was good. The first season had let me rewind a bit. In first seasons of shows, you never know what it's going to be. This could be a hit or it could flop. If you're a contestant, you're going on to this show because you genuinely believe that you are going to find love, because you don't know what it's going to be like. You go on there and you have nothing to compare it to versus someone who has been on a season 2. So I think a lot of the authenticity was there in season 1, and I think season 2 to an extent, because based on how it's filmed, I believe that like season 2 had probably already been filmed while season 1 was airing. But I do think that Love is Blind has opened up a door to an alternate reality. It's because of Love is Blind that we have, or we're able to have, a show like The Ultimatum, which I absolutely despise as a concept. And while this applies more to reality television in general, villainizing characters also has problematic consequences when you are depicting real personalities. While cast members, I'm saying this as if we aren't discussing real people, because at the end of the day, it is real people who are in these shows. So while they have to be ready for anything when being depicted on television, pigeonholing real people as antagonists can be really, really dangerous. And I'm not saying that there aren't people who are genuinely horrible, i.e. Chris from Married at First Sight. I really need to make a video on that. I need to get it out because I think that season was ridiculous but so good. Because if they're gonna turn you into an asshole, you need to give them something to work with. If you don't say it, they can't put it on television for millions of people to see. But at the end of the day, these are real people and not characters, and that is something that I often have to remind myself of when watching these shows. Villainizing characters gives you a storyline and you have somebody to root for and somebody to hate, but a lot of these things can also be distorted, and I think it's really important as consumers and viewers of this to take that into consideration, you know? And I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say. I've been yapping for I think over an hour at this point. I forgot how fun this is. I'm rewatching the originals to put up the originals video that I was supposed to put up like 2 years ago, but people are still asking me for it, which is fun and interesting. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one, and it will be soon. All right, bye.